I call myself a feminist, and I think it's a compliment to be called a feminist. To fight for equal rights, who wouldn't want to do that?
I think that Maltese women's identity is at a very interesting crossroads. We're always a bit behind when it comes to things like women's rights, the environment, migrant rights, so on and so forth.
I think that the body is still taboo, not just in Malta, everywhere. There's, the body is still taboo and the body is still very political, especially a female body.
So sometimes when I'm creating political work, I don't actually mean to make it political, but it just comes out naturally. Because I really want to say this statement, something which is like boiling up and then burst out.
But then I hear of some horrible situation, of some horrible injustice, and I just feel that rage coming up from my toes. Up. What? And I'm back in there. Because it's not acceptable. It's just not acceptable. And I don't know how people can sit by or stand by and not take action.
Or maybe backwards, Hanara. When I was a kid, my brother used to call me Defsa because I liked to be everywhere and be involved in everything, but at the same time don't really do anything, but at the same time do everything. I'm a visual artist mostly. I love to work with the body, movement, storytelling in a balloon, performance art. Before I came back to Malta, I was mostly working as a waitress in London, even in Barcelona. I studied in London College of Fashion. I started experimenting with photography. I did a lot of fashion shoots, stories. Then when I came to Malta and I started to study digital arts, I had a lot of background research in cultural studies from London College of Fashion. And there we discussed a lot female identity, the body, subcultures, the saturation of the image, what is an image, what is art, what is fashion, lots of subject, enriched cultural background. I don't really care how I'm going to be judged or everything, I'm just gonna keep moving on. And that's exactly what I did. And that's when I actually started to fall in love in Malta, when I started to be really myself and not worrying about anything else. Vale. I grew up with my father in the farm. Most summers were there spent helping my father. I never went to drawing classes or singing, or I never really did an instrument. Now I'm going to drama classes because I actually realized how much I love acting, so now I'm going to some drama classes. Yes, but yes, I feel there was always that creative gap missing in my childhood. So I remember I used to be a little bit bored home on my own, and I started to invent stories using my own body, literally the impulsiveness of dressing myself up and using this research background, which I had in cultural studies, playing a role, playing a character and posting it on social media. And that's actually how I started to become recognized more. And at first, the impression about me was not the best one because it was something different, something they are not used to. Suddenly the woman is not being, you know, the femme fatale, where the man is depicting her in his art. Suddenly a woman is standing there in front of an audience and saying whatever she feels like. And of course, some people took it wrong, some people removed me, some people messaged me like, what are you doing? But I felt like what I'm doing is honest. It's my way. I wanted to communicate with my body to an audience. And that's the story I felt I needed to tell. It's very interesting because I was interested a lot in erotic capital, actually. It was one of like my main subjects. And the world we are living in, everything is so super saturated that, you know, everything is super blurred. The lines between fashion, art, pornography, everything. You know, it's like you place it in a different context and that's it. I did as well a lot of live modeling. I think it has been one of my most interesting things I have done in my life, like posing nude in drawing classes. Seriously, like taking off the clothes and just being there with my own self, not even feeling anybody else gaze on me, even though I know like there are people from different angles drawing me. I think if you ever have issues with self-confidence, that's the way to beat it up, because you actually take away all attachments of how you are seen, and you just have to be really physically there and like mentally there with yourself, and you're just like a frozen moment of time. And that moment of stillness, you know, it could be 5 minutes, 30 minutes, that those moments of stillness are incredible, because you're in a meditative zone, like, but everyone there is there watching you. The first time I did live drawing classes was in University of Malta in front of everyone from my class. And you know, it's a challenge, but once you arrive to that stage, you're free. You literally, like, if you don't judge your own self, no one else judges you. The worst thing comes when you start judging your own self, thinking in the mind of other people.
Hi, my name is Andain Laverve, and I'm a burlesque performer. I really don't like labels because I've always felt like labels are limiting, and I don't want to limit myself as a person or as a performer. First and foremost, I always say I'm a burlesque performer, but even within the burlesque community that I have created here, I wear many hats, you know, I have many facets. Like, I'm also a tutor, I'm also a mentor, I'm a choreographer, I create costumes, I produce. So there are many things that I do within the burlesque world, but then also there are other things I do outside of burlesque, like acting, modeling, and all sorts of things. So I really don't want to label myself as one thing, because I just don't think it would be fair to limit myself that way.
Welcome to the cemetery of expectation. Social media nation, this is isolation. Welcome to the cemetery of expectation.
I've also been producing shows since 2015. The first show we produced was January 2015. And back then it wasn't very known and it wasn't a big thing because nobody really knew what burlesque was, and it was the first show on the island. And then I got this dream opportunity to be able to produce Maltese, my first Maltese in November 2016. And that was really a dream come true. I could produce my dream show, invite many foreign performers, and really showcase the beauty and diversity of the art of burlesque, and get the credibility that we needed, because once it was in a theater, people said, oh, you know, theater must be art then. I always have this joke. I tell people, you know, oh darling, it's in a theater, it must be art then. I think that the body is still taboo, not just in Malta, everywhere. There's, you know, the body is still taboo and the body is still very political, especially a female body. So showing a female body, especially not the standard female body, bigger bodies, not bodies that are shaped the way that we think a body should be shaped, right? That's quite political and powerful. And that's one of the things that burlesque is very, very known for, right? Showing different types of bodies. And then stripping, yes, we take items of clothing off. But I think if I had to use that word, it would be strip-teasing, because it's all about the tease. It's not about taking the clothes off. It's not about being naked. It's not about wanting to be naked. It's about the journey there. It's about taking people on the journey. It's not about taking it off. It's about how you take it off. It's about what are you trying to say with it. Maybe you just want to say, look at me, I feel great about myself, and I want to share this beautiful act with you. Maybe you have a message. And some people will say, oh, the male gaze, or you're objectifying yourself. People will always objectify, regardless of if you tell them to or not to. And I'm putting myself out there because I want to. It's my decision. And that's also another big thing. It's my decision, it's my choice. It's my choice to go out there and show my body. And I don't think anyone can say anything about that. So when I started out, there wasn't really a concept of burlesque. I just took a few lessons with this woman who was here, a Canadian woman. Her name was Liv Yorston. She wasn't here for a long time, but I took some lessons with her, and that was what pushed me into burlesque. And then there was nothing to go off of here. So I went to New York for a while and I actually watched a bunch of shows. I was still underage, but I went and watched everything I could to learn more about burlesque and to kind of establish my own direction where I wanted to go. So then when I came back, there wasn't really anything. And when I started, people were confused. They would look and they would kind of, what is she doing? Why is she taking items of clothing off? And it was in many places met as something scandalous. People wouldn't understand that it's an art form because they've never been exposed to it. It was difficult. I wanted to learn more and I had no opportunity because I didn't have anyone to mentor me. I'm so happy that my girls and boys have me because I can be there for them, and I try to be the best mentor I can because I didn't have that when I was starting out. My brother moved here in 1998 to study in university. Once he finished university, I was sent here to study in secondary school. And my parents moved here for retirement, bought a house. And I left many times, but I always came back.
What always kept you coming back to Malta?
I don't know. It's just, I love Malta. It's weird. Many people go abroad and they try to do things there, and I'm sure I could, and I do. I love going abroad, and I love performing there and meeting other performers. But now I feel like I'm building my little empire here. I've got my school, I've got my productions, I've got, I don't just produce Maltese, I produce many other things. And yeah, I don't know, I love it here. Too many things connecting me to Malta now. I used to be scared of that kind of attachment, but now I'm okay with it. I'm happy.
Hello, I'm Fran, and at the moment I work in the arts and culture industry in Malta, and I'm also a founding member of YPB, which is Young Progressive Beings. I am a dancer by training, and I've just finished a master's in film studies, so I would say that I'm on my way to becoming a filmmaker. I think that in anything I do in my life, it's going to be impossible not to have a feminist approach, because it's like once you've woken up, you can't go back to sleep. It's in every conversation that I have, it comes in every choice that I make. So yeah, definitely, if there's an element of creativity and of storytelling, there's always a feminist angle to it.
Ajme!
Sabiħa, ummok orrajt!
Ija grati dik bżon illum.
Għamilli neskort perżut, sabiħa. Hemx edha tagħmel ħej.
Max, ejt inġaċċedi kemm ħanaqdi tufiħ lil Joseph.
Ma nafx għalfejn jibqgħu jimlewlkom raskom b'dawn l-affarijiet. Ħanajdlek, l-inkwiet fil-familja jibda meta raġel imur lura d-dar u ma jsibx dak il-plazz ħon, qed ngħidlek jien.
U mela, trid naqra tusfiħ jiena stess parta mit-pitka li għadu l-għodu.
Għamilli erba għal-mattorta għal-mattem.
So I grew up very far away from activism, from feminism, very, very, very far away. And actually I had a friend who was a political scientist, and she said, I am going to this protest today, do you want to come with me? And I did. And it was the first stunt that YPB did before becoming YPB. And I remember just being given like a banner and being like, yeah, okay, I align with this, I agree that with all the points and everything. But I was so amazed at the sheer anger and hate that we got, that I think I was blissfully ignorant before, where I thought that, yeah, if you want to have an abortion, you go to another country, you do it, you come back, you know, no need to shout it out. But I was realizing what some of these women actually go through, and the abuse, the sheer hate and the fear that creates, and I couldn't stand still anymore. I just knew I had to do something to change that. Every day of my life I have to do something to change that.
I'm Marceline Naudin. I'm an academic at the University of Malta, the Department of Gender and Sexuality, and I'm also an activist.
How did it all begin for you?
Well, I think primarily because I'm a woman, and because I have eyes in my head, and a brain in my skull, and ears, and I could see the way that women were allowed to do certain things but not allowed to do other things, the way that there were certain expectations put on women which were not put on men. As I was growing up, what I saw was, hey, this isn't fair, this isn't right. So I think that's how I got into it. My second degree was a master's in women's studies in the UK. So obviously that informed me. I had more knowledge and theory, not just the experience, which of course all women have in our society. I'm also a social worker by profession, so I have dealt with women and men, but more women. And again, our society treats women differently, and women suffer more as a result. I've been part of the scene, if you like, in violence against women and domestic violence in Malta for, I don't know, I can't even tell you how many years, I'd say 30 odd years. I became known as the one who stands up in meetings with ministers or parliamentary secretaries or whoever and says, I am tired and fed up of saying the same thing. For the past 20 years, 30 years, I have been saying the same thing, and still things have not changed enough. Things have changed, but things have not changed enough.
My name is Sarah Portelli. I go by a Signorina professionally. I'm a 24-year-old Maltese artist working primarily with textiles and found objects. I'd say that one of the main driving forces behind my art is frustration, because even though the textile arts internationally have begun to gain some sort of respect in the mainstream art world, over here we still perceive the textile arts as just a hobby or a craft that doesn't require much skill. I honestly don't know when I became a designer. I mean, there's this anecdote of sorts that, like, I always knew that I wanted to go into fashion or work with clothes in my life. Because for my uccia, which is this tradition that we carry out on the first birthday, I picked a measuring tape and a boiled egg. And the measuring tape represents some sort of profession involving tailoring or seamstress work, and a boiled egg represents a full life. I find the community in Malta helpful in the sense that while there is competition, partially due to the sort of environment that we're working in, where there are less opportunities than there are for artists working abroad, it's very community-oriented. I feel like artists over here are more willing to help others, especially when they're starting out. And I feel like there's a good dialogue between artists over here, exchanging ideas or asking for feedback or collaborating on performances and exhibitions together. I do feel like there's a good amount of like-minded people around me, but at the same time, because I'm the only artist here that I know of working with the sort of media that I'm working with, I feel isolated but within a community. The exhibition Byronic Heroine seeks to explore the lifespan of a relationship or the formation of like our romantic fantasies. From our earliest childhood memories, imagining a future akin to like a Disney fairy tale wedding, and then moving towards the first steps into dating, the anxiety surrounding teenage romances, and then moving on to the parts of relationships that we don't really focus on when we're younger. The times when relationships get scary and dark and begin to fall apart. And finally ending with the aftermath of the breakup, where you're starting to learn to love yourself again.
Have affected your perception of romance?
And for this exhibition, I decided to collaborate with Charlene, who is another local artist who's interested in some of the same subjects that I've been researching recently.
With Sarah, I went to see her space, and there was this amazing aura, plus I already wore her costume, so I easily connect my body with her pieces. And as well, funnily enough, the story about a couple years ago, I did a whole project with Tinder and me in a wedding dress. And Sarah's story narrates a lot from a different perspective, dating in our modern life. So in some way, you know, like Sarah's aesthetics and my aesthetics, we always fall in peace together. And I want to create different scenes of how I connect with the different parts of her artworks.
Oh no, not the F word. Feminism. I think it's complicated. I think, oh my God, I'm gonna say something I regret. I'm gonna say something I regret. Feminism. Feminism, I think feminism is important, right? I think we need to have, definitely, the first thing we need to have is equality of opportunity between men and women, absolutely, in every single way. We need to give women autonomy over their body back. How about that? But I don't think it's that bad anymore. And I think there are radical feminists who I definitely don't agree with. I don't think women need to be better than men. I think we just need to be equal, but we can be different. The most important thing is that we're fighting for the same thing, you know, that we're fighting against any kind of oppression, whether female, children, race, ageism, sexism, whatever. I think that needs to be fought against. Of course, there's misogyny that needs to be like done away with, right? But I don't like calling myself a feminist because it's just, I don't want people to think I'm a radical feminist, because I'm not.
I absolutely would call myself a feminist, beyond doubt.
And I think it's great that we have younger people coming up in Malta, but not only Malta, of course, but also in Malta. There was a time when I was young, of course. Then there was a time when I was sort of in the middle, and there weren't many young people coming up. But now they are, and I think that's absolutely great.
So if I had to describe myself, I would say that first and foremost, I'm a feminist and an activist. I think that within the term feminist, you need to be an activist to be a feminist. There needs to be this sense of wanting to improve your society and your immediate surrounding, and that is feminism and that's activism. So I don't see them as directly separate from each other. I see them as very connected together.
I've been calling myself a feminist since I understood what the label meant. I still find it hilarious that people still use the word feminist as a sort of slur. Being a feminist means striving for equality for all members of society. Being a feminist means fighting for other marginalized groups that might not necessarily fit into your specific labels. I do think that nowadays it's incredibly important to follow or at least promote the tenets of intersectional feminism, meaning you don't just fight for women's rights, but you fight for the rights of minority groups, of the LGBT community, non-binary individuals, disabled people, and so on and so forth.
Feminism is a topic which I tried to research it because we all can say we are feminists. So from my point of view, I feel that I can do much more research. And when I was researching it, sometimes it's very difficult as a subject because it's so vast that I feel that I am not ready to say I'm 100% feminist because I don't have enough research around the topic. However, for me, it comes naturally that I don't like to differentiate gender. I involve everyone, color, gender, nationality, status. And for me, that's the most important thing, equality in general. So whether you call yourself feminist or not, just generally your values as a human being and the way you look at other people is what matters for me most. Because I do think it is over as well, saturated, the whole idea of feminism.
Okay, so feminism, like everything else in history, has been tried and tested, and there were many things that didn't work. I wouldn't say that I align with its first wave feminism. I think that at the time, it was something that came out of like a goodwill, or, you know, it was what it was. It's like 100 years ago, it was what it was. It was very racist, and it was not intersectional at all. So the kind of feminism that I align myself with nowadays is intersectional feminism, which fights for equal rights for everyone and takes into consideration that the fight of a white woman and the fight of a black woman is not the same. And that is something that did not exist at the time. So yes, feminism has had its problems, has had its struggles, but it is an ever-changing movement, and that is why young people need to be involved in feminism, because we need to make it what we need it.
I honestly feel that we women, we crave so much freedom of our body, freedom of our choice, but we are so controlled by capitalism, and we just we all go like this to capitalism without even realizing that at the end of the day you can't really be free, lady. It's hard, but it's so honest to accept it, like I am a victim of all this. I think that becomes free when you actually accept it, like, all right.
So in Malta right now, a woman's place and her rights are, I would say, on average, 20 years back in most European countries. We are still so horribly discriminated against in every situation, and it's baffling because it's so annoying to see how comfortable we are with that. You know, it's little things every day that just they just make you realize that you're just being discriminated against. recently I got to know that if you get like a tax refund and you're married, the tax refund goes to your husband. It's your money. You worked for it. It goes to your husband. And that's the system in Malta.
I'm laughing because that happened to me. It came under my husband's and like, I didn't get my tax IBAN. And then I put it on Facebook. Why is it under my husband?
It's under your husband's name. Amazing, isn't that? Yeah. And if you're getting chemotherapy, for example, and you get pregnant, your chemotherapy stops. No way, you know. If you're pregnant, a very planned pregnancy and very wanted, and suddenly you're diagnosed with an ailment as grave as cancer, they will not give you treatment. They will not give you treatment because you have to carry the pregnancy to term and then you can think about treatment. So, yeah, you can wait 7 months, no, to get treatment for cancer. You can wait. Yeah, if you die, it's okay.
I've done a lot of work abroad with NGOs and also with Council of Europe, EU, etc. And wherever I would go, they would tell me, Malta, no abortion. That was the way that I would be greeted by other people at the high-level meetings. Would say, Malta, no abortion. And that because they knew that any representative from Malta, especially a representative that is being sent by the state, would have to always object to anything that mentions the word Malta, no abortion.
I feel like it's a bit like a comedy joke, like a joke that you take out of the drawer. It's just like, oh yeah, I'm from this country where women are still treated like incubators. And everyone laughs, and it's like, yeah, it's tragic. Most people my age in other European countries have never had to think about this. They have never had to go out and protest because there's a woman with an ectopic pregnancy and they are still wondering whether they should allow her to have an abortion or not. I mean, this is something that their great-grandparents would have protested about, but you know, here I am, protesting about this, and no, none of my friends living abroad will ever be able to understand that. It's, I would say, a very particular upbringing, but also we are the only EU state, you know, with the exception of the Vatican, who has a complete blanket ban on abortion, and actually our laws on abortion are harsher than the Vatican's. So, yeah, I don't know who could understand that. Definitely someone living in London would not be able to understand that.
You see, many people look at the situation of women in Malta and elsewhere and they say, hey, what else do they want? Hey, you know, they work, they go to university. We've had more women graduates at the University of Malta every year than men for the past, I don't know, I'm going to say 15 years, it might be longer. And they think that the situation of women, like, we're there. And I remember this male professor saying to me, but surely that's not necessary anymore today. Surely women are now, you know, treated well, you know, like equal, you know, whatever. And that was, I'm telling you, mid-80s. And still, I mean, I'll say again, we've made a lot of progress. We've had changes in laws, we've had new services, but at the basis of everything are the gender role stereotypes. I think that is the basis of everything. I think that we have started to change. So obviously, in my mother's time, it was highly regular for a married woman with children to be working, if she was allowed to work, because of course there were the laws, but leaving that aside, when I was young, it was still unusual, but a lot less unusual. Nowadays, of course, for young women, it is usual for women to work, even if they have children. However, they still hold primary responsibility, default responsibility for the home, for the caring, for the cleaning. And of course, they are young couples, young heterosexual couples, who will say, but now, you know, things are better, and he helps me. And I say, he helps you because it's your job
And rather than say, oh, how lucky we are, we have young men who help, we should say, it's your responsibility as much as it is mine. And we need, so I think that is where we're getting stuck. The gender role stereotypes, especially in relation to the default woman, carer, cleaner responsibilities.
So in 2019, I accidentally became the poster child of the Maltese political protests after a series of photos of my sister and I protesting in Valletta in front of Parliament went viral. It was a surreal moment, seeing myself on the pages of the London Times, The Guardian, La Repubblica, newspapers in Canada, the US, and I don't even know which other countries, because at that point in time I was receiving screenshots from absolutely everyone saying oh my God, I saw you in this newspaper or that magazine. A lot of good came out of that because a number of people that I didn't know contacted me and told me, well done, I really admire you for what you're doing. Thank you for not being afraid to be seen.
To be very honest, sometimes I blurt things out. I'm a really impulsive person. So the political way of addressing things comes from different ways. First, I'm impulsive, that's 100% sure. But as well, it's something which I developed through growing up. There are certain subjects which really brings anger, brings happiness, brings me wanting to say something more. So it's something from my personal experience as well, different personal experiences. So sometimes when I'm creating political work, I don't actually mean to make it political, but it just comes out really naturally. Because I really want to say this statement, something which is like boiling up and then burst out.
I try to be involved as much as I can. I've done the women's marches and I've worked with movement graffiti on certain things. I've done a flash mob. So yeah, I want to do as much as I can. And I'm also I try to be quite involved in green issues. I hate the overdevelopment. It drives me insane. If there was one thing about Malta that I'm scared of, is I'm scared of waking up one day and just realizing that I don't like it anymore because there's not much of it left. That's one of the scariest things for me. Part of the time I live in Valletta and we have construction on the right, on left and in front, and it's Valletta. So yeah, I try to be politically involved as much as I can. It's very important. But I feel like burlesque is already political in a way, and it's already standing up for women's rights. It's already building this idea that a woman can do whatever she wants with herself and her body and, make these choices. And I think that's important.
I think it's a bit difficult to pinpoint which entity specifically created patriarchy because, patriarchy has existed for a very, 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 very long time. It hasn't existed everywhere around the world, but in most Western societies, it has existed and come into what we know at the moment. I mean, is the Bible patriarchal? Yes. Is the Christian faith patriarchal? Yes. Is most religions are patriarchal? Yes. But can you say that it is the fault of the religion that patriarchy exists? Maybe patriarchy existed already and then the religion was created. I think we can look a bit away from the blame and just reach a point where we all agree that this is a problem, that the situation that we're in at the moment is a problem, that women suffer and men suffer because under a patriarchal society, men, women, children, everyone suffers. And if we reach that consensus that we are living in this state and we don't want to live in this state anymore, then we can activate change without having to go, and point fingers and because this is your fault, this is your fault. Heavily, I feel like it's all of our faults. We carry it with us all the time. I mean, I have grown up with misogyny. I have a patriarchal upbringing. I have to fight that in everything that I do because sometimes it just slips out.
Well, I was, of course, brought up in Malta, and I was brought up by a Catholic family who always believed in social justice. And actually, I tell you that I get my social justice streak from the church. I get it, and I used to be in the Legion of Mary, which is a religious lay organization where we used to do voluntary work in people's homes. We used to visit the elderly and the sick, and we used to help out in children's homes and in residential homes for disabled people. So I learned my trade, if you like, actually through the church. And in fact, I've often said that the church has taught me too well, because the church taught me the principles of social justice, of equality, of respect, of dignity. But then sometimes we don't see those reflected in the church. So the church taught me too well.
Much worse. As I said, when I began, people didn't know what I was doing, so it used to be much worse. Now now it's pretty good actually. When I say I'm a burlesque performer, people are interested. They want to know more. You know, they want to talk about it. They're intrigued, which is nice. It's a nice type of intrigued. There are always silly things. There are always like people who don't get it, and there will always be people who won't get it, right? At an college mate of mine sent me a message, oh, what, you're a stripper now? And it's like, you don't even deserve an answer kind of thing, just skim through it.
I don't think that anyone who has not lived in or really experienced Malta could understand the level of misogyny in everyday life in Malta, like the completely blatant, in your face. Like people, when we do our stance with YPB, like people on the internet will say, you know, you deserve to die, I'm going to shoot you. We get a lot of more violent threats from men, but we do get a lot of judgment, I'd say more face-to-face with women or having a stunt, and we'll get like an old woman shouting at us. But then the men are the ones who write on their keyboards and, you know, tell us that we don't have to worry about it because we're unfuckable, or that we are all underage, so why would we even be protesting this? All sorts of, we've heard it all. We've just really creative insults.
Mostly local, yes. I did have a couple of friends from abroad because they have been used to me as the waitress, you know, like, and then suddenly they seeing this persona coming up and it's like, what is this? And as well, you know, I did have a lot of like random people following me and interpreting the artwork completely different. They were really taking it from a complete different context. Like that I'm looking for something more, you know, that I'm looking for someone to be behind my door to ring the bell and I'll be waiting in one of these costumes, you know. And it wasn't like that. You take off the costume and that's it. You move on to your book, you move on to the bed, you move on to your life, you know. A costume is a costume. And I think this has happened before to other artists in Malta, theater artists, where their character has been taken, the one who was wearing the Nazi outfit, and she was taken completely wrong, yes, and it's like, it's a character, dude, like, and it's fun to be in different characters.
I got a lot of hate, received a number of highly inappropriate messages, people telling me that I obviously need to get fucked because I had to resort to orgasming for justice. People telling me things like, well, what do you expect from someone with a face like that? It's not like she's going to get laid all the time. She has to resort to something else and satisfy herself. Like, a number of men sending me unsolicited dick pics to help me with my quest for sexual satisfaction. And I don't have any concrete evidence to back this up, but like a number of doors were silently or quietly shut in my face as a result of participating in those protests and being such a visible participant. However, I don't regret those photos. I'm happy that I have them there. I just really wish that those protests caused more change.
There is male criticism. I think men are intrigued and some of them feel that it's wrong because of upbringing or religion or society. And they feel that it would be wrong to be interested in something like this, yeah? A lot of women feel maybe threatened, or maybe they haven't actually seen it, because when people see it, they say, oh my God, I love it, it's so much fun. I would love to take a class, I would love to try this, I would love to do this. But if they haven't been exposed to it, or they don't understand it, of course, there can be misconceptions that I'm trying to seduce their man or silly things like that. In fact, when we play with the audience, usually we play with the woman because it kind of pleases everyone. I would rather, flirt with a woman. She's happy because I'm flirting with her, so she feels special. And the guy gets excited because a performer is flirting with their girl, So it just pleases everyone. And it's more fun. And I like both, so it doesn't matter.
I feel that there are a lot of people in Malta who have similar views. I feel that very few people are comfortable being open about some more progressive views because we have such a small island, small nation state. The backlash is very personal. So, if you're living in a very big country like Australia or like the States, you say something, someone will say something back to you. They live so far away, they don't know who you are. But in the case, with us, sometimes it's family members that are like, you deserve to die. So it's not easy, and I don't blame people for not wanting, to put their face on a movement that is still gearing up so much hate and anxiety within society. But I think that once you put your face out there, people just come to you. Like, you find like-minded people if people know that they can trust you. So I get approached a lot by men asking me whether this thing that they did is okay or not. Which is, I can't answer for everyone, but it's really nice to see that, this is something that they're worried about and that they want to seek some kind of like-mindedness about it.
Women who protest in Malta are seen as aggressive, over the top, there she goes again, which means that you have to be really careful because people then stop listening to you. There were a few meetings that I attended where I stood up and I said, I'm tired and fed up. I'm tired and fed up of having to say the same thing time after time and listening to people saying, oh yes, oh yes, oh yes, gonna happen, gonna do it, gonna happen. And then we're still, especially in relation to violence against women, there's still so much work that we need to do. So I think that, yes, I'm seen by some people as being a bit in their face. But, hey, I've got a face, so I can put it in somebody's face.
I think the younger generation is taking Malta in a different direction. I'm seeing a lot of people who are like a little younger than me, let's say in their early to mid-20s, who are doing some really impressive work, There are a lot of female artists who are really pushing the boundaries, and they have a different worldview. And I can see that through their art, their style, whatever they put out there into social media or their look. I'm happy to see people like that. I'm happy to see people doing exhibitions. I'm happy to see art. I'm happy to see more women artists. I'm happy to see more women who don't necessarily follow the traditional gender roles that people think women should follow.
I do believe that the artist community here is trying to push for a more equal society. I also do believe that artists here are challenging traditions and trying to reinterpret them in their own ways and embrace those aspects that are welcoming while also discarding the ones that are just downright unnecessary and, just stifling.
To change some people's mentality here is very hard. I honestly think that amazingly the next generation, even though they have been embedded with certain values of being constricted, I do feel that there will be change in the future, yes, definitely.
I have a lot of hope in the new generation. I do have a lot of hope in generations that are maybe in their 50s at the moment. I think that a lot of them are really waking up, and it's always so beautiful to see older people, like my parents or aunts or uncles that suddenly start agreeing with me and with feminism, and that's always beautiful. But I think the new generation has so much to teach us that I am just so hopeful that they will bring the true justice and true equality.
Even if 5 women change their mind, I think it's already a really good sign, because they actually stopped and listened and thought back, because when you're constantly living in this authority society where you're having, let's say, the church telling you this, the politicians telling you this, sometimes you are very confined. But then to actually have the space to listen to the everyday person and reflect back, I think, yes, I think in the future I can see good changes.
In opposition.